The community from where I come, the Luos, they say we have fought so hard for this country. We fought so hard for the change in this country, Mr. Speaker. Yet at the end of the day, you find that we're marginalized. When people are called out to go to the streets to fight for reforms, if someone dies in Eldoret, if there are 10, 6 are Luos. If 10 people die in Mombasa, if there are 10, 6 are Luos. Mr. Speaker, we are now saying that this should be something that every citizen, and that's why yesterday I had members talking about ensuring that we all have a duty to protect the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, it's important that citizens know their role, their duties, their rights and responsibilities, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that in future it's just not 2-3 people on whose backs. Mr. Speaker, it's quite important because these two gentlemen said in the handshake document that they realized that for this country to grow, they have to cede some ground. They have to cede some of the things they would have loved to do. And so we've put the growth of this country on the backs of very few people. Party leaders, some tribal kingpins, and all this. We want this now to be a shared responsibility for citizens, and that the growth of this country then is something that all of us are proud of and are participating in the problem. So, Speaker, Clause 6 talks about the issue of fighting corruption. Cases being handled in a timely manner. So, this is a matter that is close to my heart. Because this country bleeds. People die in this country. People can't get medical services in this country, Mr. Speaker, because of corruption. Nothing else. Children can't access school. People can't get medical services. People are going hungry because of sharks, corruption, and all this, Mr. Speaker. And the first time we are saying that these cases must be finished within a fixed period of time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I dare say that we may need, after this goes through, as an assembly, to ensure that we put more stricter measures, Mr. Speaker. I've always joked, Mr. Speaker, I respect the law, yes, but if I were to become president, Mr. Speaker, tomorrow, if I become president tomorrow, I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, a couple of men will have to die in this country. Because we can't have people stealing. They are disturbing the country. They have bought the courts. They have bought everywhere. Mr. Speaker, if I was a president and tomorrow someone stole the money, I'll send you to the airport and I'll kill you along the way. I won't allow you to leave. Because we have a country where we know who is stealing from us, we know who they are, and they come to TV to tell us how they are not thieves. Mr. Speaker, they will not live in my regime. I can assure you. If there's a high court judge or a Supreme Court judge who is taking money from litigants, I will kill him. If it is a member of this assembly, committee chairperson who takes money from ministries that is oversighting, I will kill him. So that we have a proper country that is clean enough. We cannot be claiming we want to be clean and we are doing deals with ministries here and there. Mr. Speaker, we need to talk corruption and deal with it. We cannot talk about corruption and hope it's going to go away. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, this particular provision, in my opinion, Mr. Speaker, is so important. And I hope that the judiciary that we are now strengthening and giving so much money will take cue. We cannot have a judiciary that cases spend 10, 15 years in court. Someone has stolen money. You can clearly see this hotel was bought using corruption money. And the guy is still starting around town saying the way he wants to run for governor or president. This has to be dealt with, Mr. Speaker, and that's why I support this provision in this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, part of why the two gentlemen came together was to ensure that we have something to deal with electoral theft being done away with, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this country as we speak today, there's something that is creeping into our politics, what I would call electoral authoritarianism, Mr. Speaker. Where, yes, we do elections, but we know the results already. We are going to elections, yet we know that so-and-so will win, so-and-so will lose. Mr. Speaker, we cannot build a democracy by spreading fear. But spreading rumors that the deep state wants so-and-so, the system wants so-and-so. Mr. Speaker, we must build confidence in our institutions, must build confidence in our electoral process, Mr. Speaker. And that's why the provisions in this particular bill, as relates to making sure that our elections are transparent, more inclusive, and involves everybody else, Mr. Speaker, and allows Kenyans to elect their leaders, Mr. Speaker, are very important, and we must support them. Especially, Mr. Speaker, where they ensure that women are involved in elections without being asked to be nominated as long as they run, Mr. Speaker. Centering IBC to ensure that it has teeth to organize more transparent elections, Mr. Speaker, is so important, Mr. Speaker. But what is important, most important, Mr. Speaker, is the mindset of the public, the software of the public. Being able to understand that if you pick a bribe from a politician to elect him, you get that kind of politician. If you listen to policy of politicians and elect politicians based on their manifesto, that's why, Mr. Speaker, we spend money in building political parties. we spend money in certain political parties so that the parties we form are able to be platforms where parties and leaders can project their voices, project their platforms. Kenyans understand why this party is, why this candidate wants to run for president, not how much money is given to... sometimes I listen to Kenyans and I wonder what kind of leaders they want to get. If someone comes to you with a good policy framework, tells you what I'm going to do and I become this, and if he doesn't have money, then you tell him, no, this one is not going anywhere. So this is also an area where it's not for MPs only or governors, it's about our citizens being able to know what is good for them, not waiting for handouts and saying, we are panel, this one has given 1,000, we'll elect him. This one has given only 200 shillings, you can't elect him, Mr. Speaker. If we are going to have a good country that we all belong to and we hope can become like what we are talking about, Singapore, then we must elect good leaders. We cannot hope to grow by electing people that you know are thieves, or you know didn't go to school well, have no ideas of how to think of solutions to... Mr. Speaker, we talk about engineering our country, rebirth of the country. But how do you rebirth the country if you leave a civil service that has been there for the last 40 years? It's a bureaucracy that is so rotten. It's one that any politician that comes in knows. They know how to capture you. You can't grow. We cannot be able to solve our problems, Mr. Speaker, of 21st century, having a public service that is of 19th century. So in our electoral system, as we reform it, we must also reform our public service to ensure that it is in tandem with the future of what the country wants. Mr.
Ombudsman, the people of Kenya are the ones who watch us. You will not come back if you do this or the other. We want to remove you. That is the institution, the people of the constituency and people of Kenya. They are the ones that supervise us. When you go to the executive, again with the respect, my learned vice chair, I think he was the first or was in that institution himself, in an institution called Ombudsman. I also want to say, no amendment pursuant to Article 257 can be said to be unconstitutional. There is nothing unconstitutional with Wajiko enjoying her power, exercising her power. You can't say she's being unconstitutional. Even if you say the courts will do it, the courts and Wajiko are created by Wajiko. I will say, if you ask me, and please ask me through the speaker, I said again, don't keep on detracting me. His Excellency President Uhuru is a person. Baba is a person. Is also Wajiko included in that name. If you try to detract us by saying, oh, they use money, listen. Money belongs to Wajiko. All the money. In effect, Wajiko can do what she wants with her money. There is an auditor general, there is even to audit the use of money by Wajiko's agents. When you come, it's not a sanction that Wajiko is limited. In effect, if you read the constitutional history of the American people, the word constitution comes from money, the use of money. Right? If you read the history of the American people, the constitution, the modern Republican constitution, it is formed because of the use of money. Wajiko is the one who authorizes whether Honorable Sankok or Kigano or anybody to use money. And there is an audit for it. So we can't have this side show, oh, money was used or that was done. No. Wajiko can do nothing illegal in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I end, we filed a later report here. I agree with that report. Though there is a dissent, the joint committees were united in its approach to the mandate that we entrusted, this House entrusted to us, and dealt, for the sake of simplicity, I think I've lifted a page from the report, which is worthwhile. It contains the issues that the committee dealt with. And if you look at these issues, I'll be requesting,
because we agreed that in all the two of them, we decided that we cannot touch because they would require us to put ourselves in the place of the promoters. We cannot substitute ourselves for the intention of the promoters. The other four, in the bill before us, you will see that 3 of them are actually not in this bill. There's only one, and I will speak to it, and it is quite minor. So I also want to let people know that there are no major issues in terms of inconsistencies or typos, as may have appeared. The fact that we identified them does not magnify them, and they're very easy to deal with. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the nation and this House that the committee was unanimous on all 31 issues, and there was no division between the Senate and the National Assembly at all throughout our deliberations. And you will see in the signature page that it is signed across the board. Mr. Speaker, we were agreed, and even after consulting with the experts, that this is a popular initiative under Article 257. The question of who initiates it is irrelevant to whether it's popular or not, because we agreed that in all the countries where you have popular initiative, it is an additional measure. Constitutional amendments usually could be proposed by Parliament or by the executive. Popular initiative gives any other person the opportunity, but does not exclude the first two. Even this Parliament can choose to initiate an amendment by popular initiative rather than inside this House. So the issue that the executive may have initiated does not take away from the fact that it's popular initiative. Mr. Speaker, we agreed that while the role of Parliament is restricted, it is not ceremonial. It is not ceremonial because if you look at Article 94(1) and 94(3), you will see that Parliament is the sieve through which anything that becomes law in this country must come. Parliament is restricted when it's popular initiative, but it is not ceremonial. And I will explain that a little more. Mr. Speaker, Parliament cannot substitute its views for the views of the promoters. And therefore, Parliament cannot make any substantive change to a document that has come through popular initiative. But, Mr. Speaker, Parliament, on a close reading of Article 94(1) and 3, has that inherent authority to make any errors, to correct any errors of form or typo which are consistent with the intention of the promoters, which does not substitute the intention of the promoters. So if the promoter meant Article 89(7) and it reads 87(7), which does not exist, Parliament can, in its discretion, correct that. But as to whether we choose or not, that is for us. And it depends on whether that typo has any grave legal consequences. And as I'll show later, in our case, it doesn't. Mr. Speaker, we agreed unanimously that in this process, a referendum is a must. And this document must be taken to the people in a referendum. That is agreed. Mr. Speaker, we also agreed that public participation is not perfunctory. It is not salutary. It is substantive. It is substantive first because it is a constitutional requirement. If we do not do it, then the process is in danger of nullification. It is also necessary, Mr. Speaker, because it helps us identify some of those gaps and how to deal with them, as we have. But more importantly also, it helps us make up our mind whether we want to vote yes or no. It helps the country make up their mind whether they want to vote yes or no. We did examine some very specific issues which has been raised as unconstitutional. One is the question of the judiciary ombudsman. Two is the question of removal of vetting of ministers and PSS. Three is the question of regulation of professional fees. And four is the question of the manner in which the two-thirds gender principle has been put in the Constitution. I'm happy to tell you, Mr. Speaker, and this House, that after thorough examination, and you'll see that in the report, and even after engagement with the experts we had engaged with, we came to a unanimous conclusion that none of those provisions are unconstitutional. Some people might find them undesirable, but undesirability and constitutionality are two different things. As long as it's constitutional, if the people agree with it, then it is okay. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this, and I want to say it categorically, and this is where the one issue arises: constitutionality. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of law, and this is where I disagree with my chairman, a constitutional amendment can be unconstitutional in two ways. It can be unconstitutional if it does not follow the process that is already in the current constitution before it's amended. Or it can be unconstitutional because it results in something that does not accord with constitutionalism. Mr. Speaker, if today there was a popular initiative that suggests that we must exterminate one of the 43 ethnicities in this country, as happened in the Holocaust and elsewhere, it would be unconstitutional, even if it came through this House and was adopted, because in substance it's unconstitutional. Or in this House, if today we decided that the presidency will only rotate in one ethnic group, it would result in that. I'm not speaking to the document yet, I'm speaking to the theory. Constitutional scholars agree that you can have a constitutional amendment that is unconstitutional. Now, what we have done, and professors of law like John Buddy is saying it's not true, but that is okay, because that is your view. I am talking about the law. John Buddy, you've not stepped in law school, so just allow me. Now, the thing, in our case, there were issues that were raised. In our case, there were issues that were raised about fairness of Schedule 2. There were issues that were raised about constitutionality. There were issues that were raised about completeness. I will not speak to them because they're in the document. But to be fair, because there are equally members, including lawyers, who do not agree with me, and they're entitled, because in law, there's no strict answer to anything. There are lawyers who believe that no constitutional amendment can be unconstitutional. What we have done, Mr. Speaker, and that was the midway path, we put the view on constitutionality and the view on unconstitutionality. But what we didn't do, there was a serious push by some of the members of the committee to suggest that we sever Schedule 2 and remove it. But we were all agreed that because Schedule 2 is part of the document, and we had agreed that we cannot make substantive changes to the document, it must go with the document. And therefore, what it has done is that it has given members of this House the opportunity to look at it and make up their mind. But what's important is, it is merely an observation. It has nothing to do with the document itself. For the document must go as it is. As I'm closing, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, and this is my last point, the minor errors. Mr. Speaker, I'll urge members to look at page 99 of the document, where we identify some of the what we call minor errors and typos. Ultimately, Mr. Speaker, looking at that list, there is only one typo in the bill that we are considering, and that is in respect of clause 51. Clause 51, Mr. Speaker, refers to Article 204. The only thing it does not do is indicate that it's looking at 204 subarticle 6. So we have two options. We can either exercise that jurisdiction here and just insert the word subarticle 6, or we can leave it. I want to submit, Mr. Speaker, that whether we exercise it or leave it is of not much consequence. Because even if we don't change it, the very constitution that we have encourages a purposive interpretation of the Constitution. Anyone looking at this amendment will see that what was intended to be amended was Article 204(6). So even if we don't invoke that jurisdiction that we have for correcting typos, form and error, it is of no consequence. Because any interpretation, because it's very clear, because it talks of the sunset clause, in the entire 204, no other subarticle talks of the sunset clause. So I want to submit, Mr. Speaker, that it is perfectly in order to pass the document without any amendment, because any typo is inconsequential anyway. Mr. Speaker, with that, I want to go to the words as appearing the recommendation of the entire committee, which is unanimous on page 169, that having considered the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 and the submissions received, the joint committees recommend that the Constitution, that this National Assembly and the Senate pass and approve the bill. And in addition, which is the second one, that Parliament enacts legislation to provide a framework on the processing of a bill to amend the Constitution by popular initiative subsequently. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Many Kenyans who have been thrown out of their houses because they cannot pay rent. And those Kenyans from my constituency are telling me that they would have wanted us to have a special sitting to discuss how they will be fed, to discuss how they will pay rent, to discuss about their lives and how they can stay away from death. Those Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, are of the view that in terms of priority, any money available to this country should be applied to get them vaccinated as of yesterday, to protect them from possible death and to make sure that they have an opportunity to live on and look after their children and educate them. It is for that reason that they tell me, and as I subscribe to that view, that in terms of priority, we have gotten our priorities upside down. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I heard the chairman of JLAC talk very passionately about Wanjiku, about her rights, about her needs, about her powers. I think he has been too busy with this report. He has not had time to travel to the countryside. Had he gone to Murang'a, where he's come from, he would have been told that the name of that lady has been changed from Wanjiku to Wagio. Wagio, Mr. Speaker, is that lady who is overburdened, who cannot take an extra burden. She cannot be Wajiko in Mayo, she is Wagio. And that Wagio doesn't own an extra burden. And the implementation of these proposed amendments will add an extra burden to Wagio. Wagio is not breathing. Her back is just about to break. She is staring at death from hunger because of the pandemic and the measures that have been put into place to make sure that people do not infect each other. Again, Mr. Speaker, I have looked at these amendments, and previously I've read the report very keenly, more than 10 times. We have been told that these amendments will address the issues of inclusivity. From what I see, what has been proposed, the offices that are being created are coming from one coalition. There before, governments were formed by coalitions when it was said we didn't have inclusivity. I don't know how these new positions coming from one side of the coalition will address inclusivity. In my thinking, probably naively, I thought that the formation of 47 county governments address the issue of inclusivity in totality, so that every county has funds, has its own government, and is able to deal with these unique challenges on a daily basis. Mr. Speaker, looking at the schedule that is detailing how constituencies will be delineated, I want to say from the onset, the people of Nyeri, where I come from, have no business supporting these constitutional amendments because of discrimination They were discriminated upon because when the BBI proponents went to seek views, they did not tell them to give views about creating extra constituencies. And the formula, and the criteria. Kieni constituency, Mr. Speaker, is 52% of Nyeri County. And I have seen other counties being proposed to have some extra constituencies. Madeira, where I represent, is a very big constituency. And I'm sure if the BBI proponents did not hijack this responsibility and left it to IBC, the people of Nyeri, the people of Kieni, the people of Madeira would have had a great opportunity to appear before the IBC and put up their case using figures and statistics and get constituencies. As it is, if these amendments go through, the people of Nyeri are cooked. They are nowhere. And I must tell the proponents, they'll have a very difficult time in Nyeri. You know, coming to tell people to support something when they feel discriminated. And I talk for the people of Kieni. I have 2 farms there, in Kabaru and in Kakuret. Although my brother and my friend, the Honorable Kanini Kega, is supporting that we go ahead and leave out the people of Nyeri, I must talk for the people of Kieni, where I'm a resident and where I have a farm, that we shall have a problem with this document. We do not want discrimination in this country. We would have wanted to appear before IBC and put up our case, and we would have been heard because we have sufficient reasons to be heard. As it is, we are not heard. So, Mr. Speaker, as it is, I want to tell the Honorable Wandai, it's good. Let the proponents be ready to go to Wagio. There's no Wanjiko. They'll fight Wagio. Wagio is hungry. The late Bob Marley, Mr. Speaker, said, a hungry man is an angry man. As you go to overburden the people in a difficult time when they are dying from COVID, when there are issues, the real issues have not been addressed, where they have no food, when they don't know what to tell their children, and you are going to tell them to create positions for people, to overburden them, you'll find angry people. And angry people are not very nice people. And I wish you the best of luck. Mr. Speaker, I have firm and clear instructions from my employers to oppose these amendments. Thank you very much.
Member for Nyando.
Sorry? Oh, it's back. From the outset, Honorable Speaker, let me thank you for this opportunity. And together with the proponents of the BBI bill that is before this House, I join them. Honorable Speaker, we as a nation must firstly backtrack and get to understand how we ended up here. The country, after the 2017 elections, that was marred with a lot of illegalities and irregularities, if the Supreme Court decision is anything to go by, did invite a lot of divisions amongst the Kenyan people. Some of us who still believe to date that we were denied our victory took a different tangent that was not in sync with the peace and tranquility that a nation should have. But through wisdom, our 2 principles came together, barring their differences and reaching a common goal to have this country be united and once again move as a one unitary society. Honorable Speaker, that is what gave birth to the handshake and consequently the BBI as a document. And if there is anything that the handshake that brought about peace will be remembered for, is this BBI that we intend to have the Kenyan people through a referendum add their weight and their voice so that we can once again midwife a constitutional amendment. Just like 2010, we are once again in a constitutional moment. And Honorable Speaker, we were not born and created for constitutions. Constitutions are just but guiding principles on how people can transact and can relate with each other. And if there are areas where the Constitution does not act and work for us, it is our responsibility to make necessary amendments. No constitution the world over is cast on stone. And a time such as that has emerged, and we are, as Kenyans, coming up to make changes in areas where we feel the shoe pinches. We have worn this shoe for the last 11 years. Even the Constitution proposes 8 years to carry out amendments. We are at 11 years now. So we are actually time-barred to make necessary changes that work for us. But as is democratic, the naysayers must always be there. We will listen to them. And we will not have any given time when all legislative pieces will be presented, adopted, and passed. Otherwise, this House will have no work. And for those who think that their visions and their views have not been captured here, there will be a second amendment, there will be a third amendment, there will be a fourth amendment, just like the United States of America are beyond their 21st amendment to date. So this is not the last time. Mr. Speaker, we have had an elaborate process to get to where we are today. And the Kenyan voices have been heard, and that is what has been put in this document. So the views that are constantly heard, that certain individuals are forcing in the throat of Kenyans a document, that is not true, Honorable Speaker. Lots and lots of public participation exercises were carried out. People presented their views from across width and breadth of this nation. And those who are promoters of this document did not go out there to come up with their own views, but they collected Wanjiku's views. And therefore we, as a people who have been given the mandate to lead, must always tell the truth that this is a document that is reflective of the wishes and aspirations of the Kenyan people, Honorable Speaker. We know that the end game here is a referendum. I know certain views have been advanced that after this, the document can be taken to the house on the hill and be assented to, and it becomes law. That can never be so, and that cannot stand. The Kenyan people must have their voices heard through a referendum. And even the naysayers will be heard. It is not so automatic that once it appears before the Kenyan people, it must pass. No. Kenyans will be given an opportunity to express their views on this document by way of voting. So for those who think that this is not in sync with their desires, they can vote no. And that is still democratic. Some of us, including myself, who are ardent supporters of this document, will vote yes. And up to now, we believe that we have the majority. But that does not mean that we shall sideline the minority. We will hear you, and we shall give you another opportunity in the nearest future as we come up with our second amendment so that those views can also be incorporated, Honorable Speaker. Amendments are always carried out to reorient people's lives. It is not something that is coming from the blues. And these are areas where we have identified, and the voluminous bill has
huge reputation in this country. So whatever report they have given us, Mr. Speaker, it is a report that is competent, that is a report that is very professional, and that it is a report, in my own view, I think is a report that is good for this House. And I would encourage fellow members of Parliament, please take your time, read through this report, so that the contribution we make in this House, it should be informed by this report and not what other people are writing outside there. Mr. Speaker, the second thing that I want to put across is that what we are dealing with here, Mr. Speaker, is a constitutional issues reflected in the BBI report. We still have legislative issues, policy and administrative issues, which I want to ask the House to expedite on these other aspects in the BBI report, so that particular bills that we are supposed to deal with, they are brought to this House and we finalize matters to do with BBI as soon as possible. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, you know, Mr. Speaker, I have been among the members who have been saying Parliament cannot be a bystander. Parliament cannot be a rubber stamp. But reading through this report and listening to the contribution of the mover and the seconder, I am convinced, Mr. Speaker, that there is no room to amend this bill. There is no room to amend this bill. This bill belongs to the people of Kenya. Our role under Article 257 is to pass it or reject it. And then it will go to the people of Kenya to make a decision. There has been also a concern raised by some people as to whether this bill is properly a popular initiative. Mr. Speaker, if you read through this report, it gives a very good historical background of where we started from. We started with the divisive election of 2017, where we had two leaders.
Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nimesimama kuipinga kwa dhati hii bili ambayo tunaizungumzia leo. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niseme ya kwamba kwanza naomba uniruhusu nitoe mask. Mheshimiwa, kwanza nataka nianze na kuiweka vizuri swala la mchakato mzima kutoka mwanzo wake mpaka hapa tulipofikia, Bwana Spika, ya kwamba utaratibu wenyewe ambao ulitumika katika kufikia mahali tulipo hivi sasa kuwa na bill, ripoti zimekuwa katika hali ya kukanganyana kutoka Bomas 1, Bwana Spika, KICC, Bwana Spika, na Bomas 2. Ripoti zote, Mheshimiwa Spika, zilikuwa zinakanganyana. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumesikia ya kwamba bill ambayo imepelekwa katika county assembly, kwenye mabunge ya county kwenda kuzungumziwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba bill hii Asante.
Proceed.
Asante. Mheshimiwa Spika, bill ambayo ilipelekwa katika mabunge yetu ya county, tulipata kujua ya kwamba bill ile ambayo IEBC chairman alitoa, alipata kopi moja ikakuwa gazetted, lakini ile ambazo zimepelekwa kwa county assembly kuzungumziwa zilitoka kwa secretariat ya BBI, Mheshimiwa Spika, ambayo zilipofika kwa chairman ambaye ni Chebukati, Mheshimiwa Spika, hazikuwa bills ambazo zimekuwa gazetted. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka niseme ya kwamba hilo peke yake, Mheshimiwa Spika, inamaanisha kwamba tayari sheria ilikuwa imehujumiwa, kwa sababu zile bills ambazo zimefika kule katika mabunge yetu ya county, Mheshimiwa Spika, tumepata kujua nyingine zilikuwa sawa, nyingine hazikuwa sawa. Na kwa sababu hiyo, Mr. Speaker, mimi nataka niseme napinga, kwa sababu hatujui hata leo tukipitisha, sisi kama bunge tukipitisha, hakuna ukweli ambao ambao tuko nao ya kwamba bili hii tumepitisha na itakayoenda sasa labda kwa referendum ama kwa kura ya maoni, Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa iko sawa, kwa sababu inaonekana kuna bills nyingi ambazo kila leo inatolewa hii, kesho inatolewa ile. Kwa sababu hiyo, Mheshimiwa Spika, hakuna uaminifu katika mchakato mzima huu wa BBI. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo ambalo mimi limenistaajabisha si kwamba ati tumevunja sheria kama bunge, lakini ni jambo la aibu, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwamba kikao cha dharura, kikao hususan kinaweza kuitwa, wabunge wanaweza kuitwa kutoka kwa muhula wao wa mapumziko kuja kwa kikao cha dharura kuja kuzungumzia mchakato wa BBI badala ya kuzungumzia matatizo yanayomwathiri mwananchi katika hali hii ngumu ya maisha katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, tungekuwa leo tunazungumzia angalau ripoti ya kutoka kwa Wizara ya Afya na mchakato mzima ambao serikali yetu kupitia Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta imeweka kumhusu mwananchi, Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini leo tunazungumzia
order on Aisha. What is out of order on Bui Robert?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It is time for Honorable Bui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm on a point of order. I have listened very keenly to my sister, the Honorable Member for Malindi. And Mr. Speaker, she has stated on Hansard that members of Parliament have been called back from resting. Mr. Speaker, I want you to go on record that we were not at home resting. We were actually stopped from being in Parliament because of the COVID-19. So we've come actually here to come and deal with issues of BBI, not because we've come from resting, but because we are closed. We would have actually been in Parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, is she in order? Is she in order to say that we are coming from home, we are supposed to be resting?
Order, Honorable Bui. That Honorable Bui.
Mheshimiwa Spika, Kiswahili kitukuzwe.
Clearly you are giving certain information to Honorable Aisha. It's not a point of order. Honorable Aisha, proceed.
Mheshimiwa Spika, Kiswahili kitukuzwe. Tumetoka kwenye mapumziko na tukaitwa hususan kwa kikao maalum. Kwa hivyo hapo hakuna hoja ambayo inatatiza, Mheshimiwa. Na nataka pia labda ningekushauri ukapata kidogo darasa la Kiswahili, manake ni lugha ambayo inaeleweka kikatiba, inatambulika kikatiba. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niseme ya kwamba wananchi katika taifa letu la Kenya, Mheshimiwa Spika, ambao sisi wametupa nguvu zao kuweza kuwasemea katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, leo wananchi wanaumia na ugonjwa wa corona. Oxygen katika hospitali zetu hakuna. Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wamechukua loan, wanakufa na depression. Watu wana mizigo mikubwa. Leo sisi tunakuja hapa kuzungumzia bill, Mheshimiwa Spika, ambayo kwanza inatuongezea mzigo, inaongezea mzigo wa Njiku ambaye tayari sahihi ana mzigo wa kutulipa mishahara sisi wabunge 416. Tunazungumzia kumuongezea mzigo wa 650 ya wabunge, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, wa Njiku kule nje hakuna vile, Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi wabunge tunakosa mshahara hivi leo. Mshahara wetu tunaupata kikamilifu, Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini walioko kule nje wanaumia, Mheshimiwa Spika. Ukiangalia biashara ya utalii, ukiangalia transport industry, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni watu ambao wamefinyiliwa na sekta nyingi za watu ambao wanafanya biashara katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Ni mikakati gani ambayo sisi kama bunge ama sisi kama taifa kwa niaba ya mwananchi wa chini tumeiweka, Mheshimiwa Spika? Ukiangalia hakuna. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka kusema hivi. Biblia inasema katika kitabu cha Mathayo 6:33 kwamba tutafute ufalme wa mbinguni na vyote tutaongezewa. Lakini katika taifa la Kenya tunasikia ya kwamba tutafute BBI na mizigo yote tutaongezewa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Tutaongezewa ushuru kwa sababu ya kulipa wabunge 650, Mheshimiwa Spika. Tutaongezewa mizigo ya kodi, Mheshimiwa Spika. Ni jambo la kusikitisha sana. Tunapokaa hapa, waheshimiwa, na waomba tufikirie mwananchi kwanza. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naamini ya kwamba hakuna Mheshimiwa Spika aliyesema anahitaji wabunge 650 katika bunge la 13 linalokuja. Mheshimiwa Spika, ndio maana tunasema ripoti hii ama bill hii Mheshimiwa Spika ni ya kukataliwa na wananchi kule nje. Nina imani leo wananiona ya kwamba watakapopitisha watakaoumia ni wananchi. Sisi tutakuwa starehe hapa, hata kama tuko 700 watatulipa. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka niseme wananchi kule nje wajipange na wajue ya kwamba huu ni mzigo wao, si mzigo wa wabunge ambao wamekaa starehe ndani ya bunge hili letu la taifa. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka niwasihi, wakati kama yote yataenda mpaka yawarudie wao, Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niongee na taifa ya kwamba huu mzigo hakuna atakayeutoa kwa mabega yao isipokuwa wao. Watakaoweza kufanya hivyo ni wananchi wenyewe. Asanteni sana.
Next is Honorable Orekenta, member for Narok North.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm greatly honored to get this opportunity to also contribute to this very historic motion. Honorable Speaker, the history of this country is full of instances and constitutional moments when this country really could have put things right. Honorable Speaker, just before independence, we had the Lancaster House Conference. And that was the conference that divided Kenya down the middle. And that was when land rights were actually destroyed. Because during that conference, lands that were supposed to go back to the people who are deprived of those lands were actually abrogated and denied by independent government. So that was the first time that the Kenyan lost the opportunity to actually bring all the Kenyans together. Honorable Speaker, after independence, there were piecemeal amendments. In 1996, there was the attempt to change the constitution to stop President Moi from taking over the leadership of this country. Fortunately, it failed because the founding president actually blocked it. In 1992, Honorable Speaker, there was the change of Section 2A of the Constitution to reintroduce multipartyism. Now, in 2010, we had the Constitution, which was very progressive, and it is still there, which was said to be 80% perfect and 20% problematic. And I think that was one of the issues that was supposed to be resolved. When we come to now, as my colleagues have said, this is a moment that must not pass us. And I would like to request my colleagues to debate this matter with the sobriety that is really meant for any leader worth his salt. Honorable Speaker, this is not a political competition at the moment. It's not a matter of who is right and who is wrong. It is a matter of how do we bring our people together? How do we ensure that that segregation that has been there for so long is actually vanquished? Honorable Speaker, I have heard of Wanjiko, and maybe I can also introduce Naserian for the Maasai people. I actually represent the Narok North constituency, and my instructions as Gachagua from his own constituency is that I support this bill. Why did they say that I support it? Because the first two proponents, who are actually Kenyan citizens like anybody else, the president of this country, Uhuru Kenyatta, the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, as I have said, are also citizens like me and anybody else, came together to bring this country together. Honorable Speaker, I remember when we went to welcome Honorable Raila Odinga at the airport one time, the kind of death that we witnessed on the streets of Nairobi is something that should never be repeated. And so when they came together, my people and my community at large actually realized that time for them to stand with these people is now. Why do I say that? These are the two giants of the Kenyan political scene. They are the ones who can actually bring this country together. And when they brought this initiative, and there was public participation, the Kenyan people agreed with them, and several issues were brought to the fore that have been actually polarizing this country. Honorable Speaker, when I hear my colleagues say that there was no consultation, I'm shocked because as far as I'm concerned, The team that actually initiated this process went all over the country, but unfortunately some of the Kenyan people decided to boycott those hearings. So one cannot boycott a hearing and then come now and say they are not included or they are not consulted. I think that one is not the right thing to do, and I think it's hypocritical. Honorable Speaker, there are many issues, and I would like now to go to the substance of the amendments. One of them is actually the extra 70 constituencies. Narok is getting 3. We are supporting it because the resources will increase, and these resources will assist our people. The only problem is the people of Narok must decide for themselves the boundaries of these constituencies. They must decide for themselves how they want to be governed. Because we have seen a tendency these days that people from elsewhere come and carve for themselves areas to contest at the expense of the local people. And I think the most important thing is that the local people's interest must be taken care of. So if anybody believes that they are a majority at a particular place, they can disenfranchise the people of Narok or anywhere else. I believe then that we are not fostering peace. We are actually trying to create a situation whereby there will be bad blood and eventually the flare-up of clashes, which we have stopped since 2007. So I'll just like to maybe caution that even when you create these constituencies, let it be for the people, for the ordinary and the local people, not necessarily for other people. Because when you look at these constituencies, Narok, for example, has 3. Some counties have 6. Yet the same counties with 6 want to come and take part of those. For example, if you have 3 in Narok, you want to take 1 or 2, then where are the local people left? If you go to Kajiado, there are 3. The local people are denied those 3. How do you do it? You go to Eldoret to do the same thing. Then how do you foster peace as far as that one is concerned? So I support, but it must be an initiative of the local people. Honorable Speaker, we have seen that now there is an opportunity for the marginalized people, the disabled, the women, or the women gender, and others. The Maasai, for example, who have been marginalized since independence, have a chance now to also play a bigger role as far as the issues affecting this country politically, economically, and socially. They now have a chance to actually also participate. So I believe if we can actually ensure, when it comes to employment, that each community, as long as somebody is qualified, gets an opportunity to serve the country, then I think there will be no reason for any misunderstanding. Because let us be honest. There is something that destroys a country. The moment there is an opportunity of employment, and it's the same names that appear in every employment opportunity, then I think it creates a situation whereby some people feel, or some communities feel, that they've been left out. Because you must realize we are equal as far as this is concerned. So when you talk about cohesion, it's important that from now on, we ensure that this constitution protects each equally.